Hello again, we are in the PSUR section, overview of signal, new, ongoing or closed. A signal should be included once it has undergone the initial screening or clarification step and a determination made to conduct further evaluation by the marketing authorization holder. Signals may be qualitative, for example, a pivotal individual case safety report. Signal may be qualitative, for example, pivotal individual case safety report, case series, or quantitative, for example, disproportionality scores, finding of a clinical trial or epidemiological study. Signal may be arise Signal may be arise in the form of an information request or inquiry on a safety issue from a competent authority worldwide. A new signal refers to a signal that has been identified during the reporting interval where new clinically significant information on a previously closed signal becomes available during the reporting interval of the PSUR. This would also be considered a new signal on the basis that a new aspect of a previously refuted signal or recognized risk warrant further action. To verify new signals may be classified as closed or ongoing, depending on the status of signal evaluation at the end of the reporting interval of the PSUR. Example of the new signals would therefore include new information on a previously closed and refuted signal, which would result in the signal being reopened. Identify risk where the new information suggests a clinically significant difference in the severity or frequency of the risk. For example, transient liver enzyme increases rate increases or identify risk and new information indicative of a more severe outcome such as hepatic failure is received, or um, neutropenia is an identified risk and a well-documented case report of agranulocytosis with no presence of possible alternative causes is received. Example of new signals would therefore include new information on a previously. Okay, you see, now we read a new signal refers to a signal that has been identified during the reporting interval where new clinically significant information on a previously closed signal becomes available during the reporting interval of the PSUR. This would also be considered a new signal on the basis that a new aspect of a previously refuted signal or recognized risk warrant further action. To verify new signal and classify. An example of new signal would therefore include a new information on a previously closed and refuted signal, which would result in the signal being reopened. Identify risk where the new information suggests a clinically significant difference in the severity or frequency of the risk. For example, transient liver uh, enzyme increases or identify risk and new information indicative of a more severe outcome such as hepatic failure is received, and or neutropenia is an identified risk and a well-documented case report of agranulocytosis with no presence of possible alternative cause is received. Identify risk for which a higher okay. Identify risk for which a higher frequency or severity of the risk is newly found, for example, in an indicated subpopulation. Potential risk which, if confirmed, would warrant a new warning precaution. Okay, sorry again. Identify risk for which a higher frequency or severity of the risk is newly found, for example, in an indicated subpopulation. Potential risk which, if confirmed, would warrant a new warning, precaution, a new contraindication, or restriction in indications or population or other risk minimization activities. Potential risk which, if confirmed, would warrant a new warning, new precaution, a new contraindication or restriction is indication of population of the risk minimization. In this case, this is a new signal, would therefore include a new information previously. Tabulation of all signal ongoing or closed at the end of the reporting interval. A brief description of the signal beneath. A date when the marketing authorization holder become aware of the signal. A status of the signal at the end of the reporting interval, closed or ongoing. Date when the signal was closed, if applicable. Source of the signal. A brief summary of the key data. Plans for further evaluation. Action taken or planned. Okay. This table difference to the other one, it has action taken also, but I think this is a repeat to the other video also. PSUR section, signals and risk evaluation. A succinct is a succinct summary of what is known about important identify and potential risk and important missing information at the beginning of the reporting interval covered by the report. An evaluation of all signals closed during the reporting interval. An evaluation of new information with response to previously recognized, identified, and potential risks. An updated characterization of important potential and identified risk where applicable, and a summary of the effectiveness of risk minimization activities in any country or region which may have utility in other countries or region. Signal and risk evaluation. Okay, subsection summary of safety concerns. Important of identify risk, important potential risk, and important missing information. The following factors should be considered when determining importance of each risk. Medical seriousness of the risk, including the impact on individual patients, its frequency, predictability, preventability, and reversibility, potential impact on public health, frequency, size of treated population, and potential for avoidance of the use of medicinal product with a preventive benefit due to the disproportionate public perception of the risk. For example, vaccines. The following factors should be important Identified and potential risk may include, for example, important adverse reaction, interaction with other medicinal products, interaction with foods and other substances, medication error, effect of occupational exposure, and pharmacological class effects. Those signals that following evaluation have been refuted as false signal based on medical judgment and scientific evaluation of the currently available information. Those signals that following the evaluation have been refuted as false signal based on medical judgment and scientific evaluation. Those signals that following evaluation have been categorized as either a potential or identified risk, including lack of efficacy. Those signals following evaluation. Classification of closing signal. Closed and refuted signal. Closed signal that are categorized as important potential risk. So I think these all of them are repeated of the other lecture, but they are categorized by the PSUR. Closed signals that are categorized as important identify important potential, and the risk potential risk they not categorized as important, identified risk not categorized as important, potential not categorized as important, identified not categorized as important, categorized as important identified, and categorized as important potential. Each evaluation should include the following information: source or triggers of the signal, background relevant to evaluation, methods of evaluation, criteria where applicable, specific med DRA terms, medical DRA terms, and analytic approach, result summary and criteria, analysis of the data, discussion and conclusion. Evaluation of risk and new information. New information can be organized as follows: new information on important potential risk, new information on important identified risk, new information on other potential risks not categorized as important, new information on other identified risks not categorized as important, and update on important missing information. Each evaluation should include the following information as appropriate: source of new information, background relevant to the evaluation, methods of evaluation including data, source, search criteria, and analytic approach, result a summary, result a summary and critical analysis of the data considered in the risk evaluation, discussion, conclusion, including whether or not the evaluation supports an update of the characterization of any of the important potential and identified risk in subsection characterization of risks. Characterization of risk is a frequency, number of cases, numerator. Again, each evaluation should include the following information as appropriate: source, background of evaluation, method of evaluation, source, search criteria, result, discussion, conclusion. Now, what is the characterization of risk? Frequency, number of cases, numerator, and precision of estimates, taking into account the sources of data, extent of use, denominator, expressed as numbers of patients, patient time, etc. The precision of estimates. Estimate of relative risks and precision of estimates. Estimates of absolute risk and precision of estimate. Estimate of absolute risk, estimate of relative risk, extent of use, number of case, frequency. This is a characterization of any risk. See, the next page is also the repeat of that page. They are not different. Impact on individuals, patient, effect on symptoms, quality or quantity of life, public health impact, patient characteristic relevant to risk, for example, patient factors, age, pregnancy, lactation, hepatic impairment, renal impairment, relevant comorbidity, disease severity, genetic polymorphism, dose and route of administration, duration of treatment, risk period, preventability, that means predictability, ability to monitor for senile adverse reaction for laboratory marker, reversibility, potential mechanism and strength of evidence and its uncertainty, including analysis of conflicting evidence if applicable. Okay, that was the characterization of risk. The risk has a dose, routes of administration, duration of treatment, risk period, preventability, that means predictability, ability to monitor for a senile adverse reaction or laboratory marker, risk has a reversibility, potential mechanism and strength of evidence and its uncertainty, including analysis of conflicting evidence if applicable. Headings that could be considered include risks relating to the active substance, risk related to a specific formulation or route of administration, risk related to a specific population, risk associated with non-prescription use for compounds that are available as both prescription and non-prescription products. Heading that could be considered include risk relating to active substance, risk related to a specific formulation or route of administration, risk related to a specific population, risk associated with non-prescription use for compounds that are available as both prescription and non-prescription use. Okay, effective of risk minimization if applicable. The risk minimization is also important, and benefit evaluation. Subsection important baseline efficacy and effectiveness information. Subsection newly identified information on efficacy and effectiveness. Subsection also we should provide for characterization of benefit. For characterization of benefit, we should write a brief description of the strength of evidence of benefits considering comparator, effect size, statistical rigor, methodological strength and deficiency and consistency of finding across trials, studies, new information that challenge the validity of a surrogate endpoint if used, clinical relevance of the effect size. Okay, the characterization of benefits. A brief description of strengths of evidence of benefit considering comparator, effect size, statistical rigor, methodology, strengths and deficiency, consistency of finding across serial studies, new information that challenge the validity of a surrogate endpoint if used, clinical relevance of the effect size, generalizability of treatment response across the indicated patient's population, information that demonstrate lack of treatment effect in a subpopulation, adequacy of characterization of dose response, duration of effect, comparative efficacy, and a determination of the extent to which efficacy finding from clinical trials and generalizable to patient population treated a medical practice. Okay, it means, what does it mean? This is a one subsection of periodic safety update report. I find one good benefit. I should determine the efficacy. I should comparative efficacy. I should write the duration of these effects. I should write my adequacy of characterization of dose response. Integrated benefit risk analysis for authorized indication. This is another subsection. Context, medical need, and important alternative. What is this? This is a benefit risk analysis evaluation, whereas previous subsection should include all important benefit and risk information. Not all benefit and risk contribute importantly to the overall benefit risk evaluation. Therefore, the key benefits and risks considered in the evaluation should be specified. The key information presented in the previous benefit and risk subsection should be carried forward for integration in the benefit risk evaluation. Consider the context for use of the medicinal product, the condition to be treated, prevented, or diagnosed, its severity and seriousness, and the population to be treated, relatively healthy, chronic illness, rare condition. Excuse me. Okay, again, I want to evaluate my benefit risk, and this evaluation I should write it in my PSUR subsection, whereas previous section should include all important benefit and risk information. Not all benefit and risk contribute importantly to the overall benefit risk evaluation. Therefore, the key benefits and risks considered in the evaluation should be specified. The key information presented in the previous benefit and risk subsection should be carried forward for integration in the benefit risk evaluation. Consider the context of use of the medicinal product, the condition to be treated, prevented. This condition should be treated or prevented or diagnosed, its severity and seriousness. Consider the context of use of the medicinal products, the condition to be treated, prevented, or diagnosed, its severity and seriousness, and the population to be treated, relatively healthy, chronic illness, rare condition. With respect to the key benefit, consider its nature, clinical importance, duration, and the generalizability, as well as evidence of efficacy in non-responders to other therapies and alternative treatment. Consider the effect size. If there are individual elements of benefit, consider all, for example, therapies for rheumatoid arthritis, reduction of symptoms, and inhibition of radiographic progression of joint damage. With respect to risk, consider its clinical importance, for example, nature of toxicity, seriousness, frequency, predictability, preventability, reversibility, impact on patients, and whether it arose from clinical trial in unauthorized indication or population, off-label use or misuse. The strengths, weakness, and uncertainties of evidence should be considered when formulating the benefit risk evaluation. Describe how uncertainties in the benefit and risks impact the evaluation. Limitation of the assessment should be discussed. Provide a clear explanation of the methodology and reasoning used to develop the benefit risk evaluation. The assumption of the consideration and judgment or weighting that supports the conclusion of the benefit risk evaluation should be clear. If a formal quantitative or semi-quantitative assessment of benefit risk is provided, a summary of the methods should be included. Economic consideration, for example, cost effectiveness, should not be considered in the benefit risk 1184 evaluation. PSUR sections, conclusion and actions. The appendix to the PSURs. Reference informations. 1. We should have a reference. Number 2. Cumulative summary tabulations of series adverse events from medicinal clinical trials. Cumulative summary tabulation of serious adverse events from clinical trials and cumulative and interval summary of tabulation of serious and non-serious adverse reaction from post-marketing data source. Tabular summary of safety signals, if not included in the body of the report. Listing of all marketing authorization holders sponsored interventional and non-interventional studies with the primary aim of identifying, characterizing, or quantifying a safety hazard or confirming the safety profile of the medicinal products or of measuring the effectiveness of risk management measures